Well, it's July 9th, so happy birthday to my niece Janelle. And hello to Darcy and Marie. So, yeah, it's a little different than a blogger. Blogger people would read my blogs but never send me email. And I know on my podcast, I've heard one of the ladies. She says, "I'll jump on live with you," and I'm going, "Go ahead." But I am going to invite her to have a conversation later on. I don't know when, maybe next week, with regards to growing up on First Nations as an Indigenous female. She married off from Sutina, and just the whole dynamics of misogyny and lateral violence. And I was talking to my cousin. This has nothing to do with the lady I'm going to invite, but my cousin, bless her heart, like, I mean, I have a degree. I mean, she has a degree as well. But, and she married, her first husband was from her home community, and they had 3 children. I've never been married. I don't have children. However, the misogyny and the lateral violence towards women who do not have partners is so steep. Like, I have a home. I'm very grateful that I have a home. And, when I lived in the States, it was just like paying rent and, oh, I couldn't even have a pet or a garden. I was like in limbo. That's how I felt. And I know you as listeners, you have a different upbringing than I have. So if I think I'm being ignorant, it's just because I don't know certain things about what it is to have to deal with paperwork and all the necessities of living in a municipality. I do know what it's like to live in the United States, and I do have a small inkling of what it's like to live on a reservation in the United States. However, I live in Canada on a reserve, not an Inuit community or a Métis settlement. So when I talk about Indigenous people, that's who I'm talking about. People who actually live on the land, who have a different outlook on what people in the cities have. People who have status cards. Like, I had a status card. I lived in the city. I didn't get any rewards for my membership. Never got, my rent paid for or travel allowance. Nothing. No utilities paid. And things are changing. Things have been changing for my community, but not all communities. So when you have someone who has a status card, who's lived and grown up in a First Nations, and who still has family living there, like brothers and sisters, not just one relative, okay? I mean, I'm talking about community. So, bless my cousin's heart. She's living in a house that her mother lived in. And her mother was my aunt, and the shingles on her roof need to be done. She needs a new furnace. She just needs a whole bunch of things done for her home. And like the next couple of days, it's going to be extremely hot in Manitoba because they're in a heat dome. And she has a portable air conditioner. So even the fact that her sister, the lateral violence, got all this stuff done to her home so that her home is cool. Yet here's the other sister. I'm cousins to both of them, but it's the relationship of how you grew up and what the lifestyle you chose to live. And my cousin chose to get educated, raise her 3 children, adult children, without any help from their dad, and bought a home, sold her home, moved back to her community. And yet she's living in this home that really needs a lot of renovations. I live in a home that's newly renovated. My home is only 10 years old, and yet I got it renovated. But yet this isn't, even though I'm living here, this originally was my mother's home. So I want my listeners to understand, like when I talk about misogyny, and when I talk about people who sort of just poo-poo on the fact, oh, there she is. Like any First Nations, any Inuit or any Métis female who is single, who lives in their community off the land, knows what I'm talking about. I've done so many talks. I've had young women coming up to me and saying, my mother experienced the same thing. It's just like it's lateral violence. But what can you do? I mean, where's the magic wand? Like, where's Prince Charming? Help me, rescue me. It's not going to happen. I know I meet a lot of other women who are non-Indigenous. I just met a 70-year-old woman who's working in the arts, we both have the same friend. And, it's amazing, you live a certain lifestyle when you're in your 20s, and then now that you become an elder, everything slows down physically, but mentally everything seems to be speeding up. So, what can we do as senior women? We've gone through menopause, we've seen our lives, we've felt things, and we've had to deal with our emotions, we had to find balance throughout our lives. And yet, just the struggle, we're still hated on. I think it's like the soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo. Beautiful, handsome man, talented, grew from poverty, and has excelled in all areas of his life and in the sport that he loves. And he still has people who hate him. Now, that's the same thing. Not that I'm a billionaire, but I'm just saying that's the way we are as human beings. It does not matter what kind of kudos you have, what you've done. Somebody somewhere just will not like you. So, you gotta sort of suck it up, buttercup, and just plow your way through each day. And that's why I think it's so refreshing to have older women that I can talk to about just planning to do things like every day, like one day, and challenging yourself to do it. And when we were younger, you don't think that way. You just think, oh, I'm going to do this, or I can't do this because of this and this and this. I mean, you make excuses. Well, when you're older, there's no excuses because, well, I shouldn't say that too. It's not just with older people. I think our young people today are living very precariously. I mean, somebody put it that any moment now, half of the world's population could disappear. And it's true. I keep on saying that. Just detonate 5 nuclear bombs in one area and it'll be like an asteroid hitting the world and destroying or wiping out most of the population. That's how what we've got ourselves into. So what makes us so great? Like, why do we want to become great again? We're pretty pitiful, and we're in a pretty sad position when that's the legacy we're giving our children and our grandchildren from all over the world. Not just one superpower or 2 superpowers. This is something that, as a consciousness, we have to think about. And maybe in some very distant past that has been totally annihilated and erased from our human memory, that the people who came before us knew this. So again, we're struggling with these things and these notions of what is appropriate or inappropriate, what's good, what's bad, struggling through the whole cosmos and not realizing that with any moment we could just vanish. Isn't that pathetic that it's summer, everybody's on holidays, everybody's trying to enjoy themselves, and here I am being what they call a sad sack. But when I look at Donald Trump and I'm going, what a sad sack. Like, there was a comic strip called Sad Sack. Really. I'm not making this up, and I'm not trying to try and create something that wasn't there before. It's just the reality. There are some things in life that are just totally sad, and there's nothing anybody can do about to change it. Like I said, I could look at my life and think, oh, how sad am I? But yet, I didn't get this age by thinking that. And I think it's the maturity or the networking with other human beings who are doing their best just to exist or to make sense out of the things that are happening today in this world. So quite a few months ago, March and April, I met people who had said, including my cousin in Manitoba, they're going to come to the Calgary Stampede. Say, oh, yay, great, thank you. I'll have company in July. Poor, miserable me. What happens? Nobody shows up. Really, my cousin isn't showing up. The lady in Arizona is not showing up. The guy from Washington, D.C. is not showing up. Who else isn't showing up? Well, even my niece moved back to Victoria. Oh, what can I say? But that's life, you know. I mean, I was thinking about the people I've met in my life, and I thought about the people I just met in this past 6 months or even longer. And even though people come into my life for a brief period of time, there's always something that profoundly has changed in me, in self-reflection. And I'm going, what is it that they touched my heart with, that I'm no longer that same person I was before I met them? And that's the way friendship is, and that's the way life is. We meet people, and I totally believe that we have to protect our energy, protective, reflective, healing energy. That's worth protecting. I think sometimes when I was younger, I didn't know, I didn't understand. And again, bless my heart, I'm as old as I am. And now I can reflect back and think, I chose this. I chose this and I walked into it freely. And I saw something, felt not physically like through sight or touch or taste. It was a sensation of energy. And I think as human beings every day, you know, when we were born as children, we're born holy. And as we grow up, I think that energy, however it's evolved, is so profound. And when you reflect back when you're older at the thing or the people you've met or the energy that you've encountered, it has a lasting effect. Because I think, why am I thinking about this? Why is this happening to me? That was 55 years ago. Now, again, I want to be very critical in this and say this is not based on trauma, okay? A lot of people want to just use it as a scapegoat for why is Marina Crane the way she is. No, don't scapegoat me, don't mansplain me, don't, what do they call that, gaslight me, and don't try to manipulate me. There are some things in this life, like I said, with every human being, we have this gut feeling. So, based on gut feeling, my whole life, I had a question given to me. How did you know these two people were going to be here twice? And I'm going, I don't know the question. It was just intuitive. I just said, it's intuitive. I'm intuitive. I don't know, because I physically didn't see these two people. It was just a shift in thought when I'm talking, and then out of the blue, there are the two people. So that's what I'm saying. When you're protecting your energy, a protective, reflective, healing energy, and you're wanting that energy to heal you within yourself, there's also a part where you have to release it, because whatever energy somebody's influencing you with isn't yours to carry. That's theirs. And a lot of times when there's so much trauma, so much hate, so much anger, so much confusion, and just somebody, it's like a soul crying out for help. Like, throw me a life preserver. They don't even know they're doing it. It's the same thing as like somebody praying for somebody to die. They don't even know they're doing it. It's just an energy. So I caution people about that. I said, we don't see it because we're thinking we can see it, feel it, touch it, taste it. It's something, a gut feeling, and we have to protect that within our own well-being, because in doing so, we're helping other people, if that makes sense, because I sure hope so. I sure hope so, because the prayers I give out to people who seem to pop up in my mind and I question, why am I thinking about this person? Then I pray and I ask Creator for protective, reflective, healing energy to embrace them, because I don't know Creator and grandfathers and grandmothers' purpose in this. And then I just say, release this person with protective, reflective, healing energy, because it's not mine to digest. I think whenever I'm in contact, like person to person, talking eye to eye and in the same room with another human being, then that's like I have no how would I put it? I'm just who I am. But yet, it's interesting the direction that the conversation seems to go, and I enjoy it. We all do. Now, what am I doing talking about in my podcast today? Well, it's the Calgary Stampede, and just I'm sorry, I gotta laugh because a lot of people hate rodeo. A lot of people hate like the sounds of the midway. A lot of people hate the fact that it's costing so much. A lot of people hate the heat. Like there's just so much percolating. Like I look at the Calgary Stampede and the rides are on asphalt. Okay, and then you go into these air conditioned big rooms and it's just a heat cell. And I'm going, why in the hell doesn't the Stampede Board or the City of Calgary make air, like a cooling system, like in China? They have these like they're like light poles where mists of water just spray and cools down everybody. Like, come on, be innovative. These people pay huge dollars to go into the Stampede. And then you got all these young people who are all getting heated up, dehydrated, getting drunk and stoned and getting nasty with each other. And it's just like a swamp. I that's the only analogy I have, because I grew up my whole life around the Stampede. Like I've said, I was a zoo animal. I felt that way, and I still do. I think sometimes too, as an elder, I see young people with a lot of anger the way I get treated. Not in the sense of somebody's treating her bad. No, in the sense that when somebody says, "Can I help you with something?" and I'll say yes, or they move away and they make room for me, and then I watch people who are looking at me in disgust, and I don't even think people really even know they're doing that, because whatever issue they have with their, like I said, their family members, their mother, their father, whatever I represent to them, they just, I can see their anger. And so I have to stay mindful and be cautious not to loiter around that energy too much. So again, that's when we talk about, a lot of times when we talk about addiction, most medicine people talk about alcohol and drugs as having a spirit. And again, too, it's the energy within the context of the people that are involved in the process of drinking, in that space, that energy has its own spirit. It's like when somebody says, "Oh, white men are the most dangerous men on the planet." White men. I have white friends that said, "Yes." My friend was in London, 23 years old. She said there was about 10 young men coming after me. She said they were just going to rape me. She says, and she says, and they were very violent. She says she was fortunate that she escaped. But the reality is that when somebody gives permission to a group of people to do something, and they think like, okay, I got permission, I'm going to do it, like the consequences to that doesn't hit them. It doesn't. And yet I truly believe, like I don't know how to explain it, in the sense that we'll say with war, when a young man or woman goes to war and they've been given orders, so basically they've been given permission to collect a whole bunch of young men and women, or just young men and old men, and standing up against the wall and execute them. They were given permission to dig the hole and do mass burials of their victims. It's nothing in the sense of, I'm trying not to take away from the experience of even the Vietnam vets who were in Vietnam, we're given orders and permission to do things. So when the human psyche or the human energy that is sort of like at that unconscious level that has its spirit, it's in that you have to protect yourself from, because like just like I said, I walked into something when I was young. I didn't know I needed to protect myself. So throughout my life, I carry this. It's nothing traumatic, but I equate it, or I'm using it as an example of when a human being, a young person, is given permission to kill, and the consequences of being given permission to do such a thing and to carry that throughout one's life, to live with that because it was given in defense of, say, your country or the protection of your platoon or whatever. And again, the cautiousness about it is that sometimes when you have done so many things over and over again with ever getting caught, then it's like, really people, like I see it as being really rambunctious. I went to a birthday party the other day, and a week ago, I think, and this young man came in with my friend's daughter. I've never met her daughter nor her partner, but I was there and I witnessed the energy that was flowing between the stepfather and his stepdaughter's partner, not even knowing that there was some family violence and the guy had beaten this young woman, but I could sense something. And that's what I mean, like a person can get away with so much and think like that nobody knows. But until you learn how to embrace and release, you carry that with you in public and people see it, especially when you're a young person. Now, an older person, sometimes you see it in older people too. And I mean, I see it in some of the people I know that are just so bitter about how they had thought that if they got married, had children, that their partners would be with them for the rest of their lives. Like there's some bitterness attached to that, or that having an affair with a married man, and the consequences of like, being bitter because you thought you'd end up retired and happily ever after with that person. Most scenarios and narratives that have come about are heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, but yet the reality of it is like, what makes healthy human sexuality? The reality of it is just that nothing is permanent, nothing is what it is. And for me, at my age, and how I talk about meeting people that you're still sexually attracted to, or they're attracted to you, you still have to embrace that energy because you're a human being. And if you're afraid to embrace it, why? See, that's the whole point of it, is as a human being, you yourself only know who you are. You yourself know why you have to embrace it. At the same time, you also know why you have to release it. But doing this isn't easy, and it's a very lonely process too. But it's rewarding. As much as I know that people don't want to listen to what I have to say, it's rewarding because so many people have written so many books, so many legends, so many oral stories, so many things about what life is about. I met one of the plumber that came to my home last week. His daughters have status cards. They've never lived in First Nations, Inuit, or Métis communities, and for him, his status card comes from Métis community. His daughters do. So, but the reality of it is like so many Indigenous people who have status cards who've never lived in the First Nations, Inuit, or Métis settlements or First Nations, don't realize like the money that's out there, because his daughter applied for a grant for $250,000 for her PhD. Applied to so many other programs, but when she used her status, she got the money. So my question is, what is she going to do to pay back to all those poor students who are living in those Métis colonies, Inuit communities, and First Nations that have lack of education, lack of proper living, lack of everything. See, that's why I mentioned my cousin, educated, pays a good paying job, but how she's treated, her house, everything. And like, people don't see that. People don't see the struggle, everyday injustice. And that's why, as a woman, when I talk about these things and people just sort of look at me and just say, oh, well, there's Marina, especially in my community, like I said, some people just look at me as if they hate the ground I walk on. Like, who is she to have somebody give her food and put food in front of her? Who is she to have somebody clean up after her? I'm going, I have nothing to do with this. Did I ask these people to do this for me? They just freely did it. So even that, like if people watched, why can't they see that? Instead, I just feel all this anger towards somebody who doesn't even know me projecting that onto me. And it's not just males, it's females as well. So all that anger, all the misogyny and however they've grown up, maybe lack of education, poverty, whatever injustice they feel every day, I don't have a magic wand. I don't. All I do is talk about healing and how to try and talk about how you feel and have just be there for your friends, your family, like have a network, constantly work at connecting with people, especially being so young. It's important. I know it's such a tragedy too when if this is going to trigger people, so if it triggers you, I'm sorry, but it's the reality of living in our communities, Indigenous communities. A 12-year-old killed herself. Not in my community, but the reality is her mother was a teacher, so her mother is educated. But I just feel like her mother had to have been had combat fatigue because her husband was an alcoholic, that she gave their daughter to him to look after. And whatever he did to cause his own daughter to kill herself, it's tragic. And yet I have these mythologies or these illusions or these, what do they call it, illusions or delusional ways of thinking where people think, oh, she committed suicide, it was her time, without looking at the cause and effect and where that violent thought came from. To kill yourself is the most violent act one can do to oneself. Like, what was she being tortured with? See, people don't want to look at it. They think, oh no, let's live in the delusion or the illusion that, this is her time to die. Like, excuse me. Like I said, any second, half of the world could explode because somebody detonates 4 atomic bombs. Or an asteroid comes and bang, wipes out Europe. We're going to feel it just like that, just bang, we're going to feel it. Is somebody going to say to me, it was our time? This is it was our time, the earth had to die. Like that kind of irrational thinking and like delusional ways of thinking without understanding the whole complexity of where we're living, where the planet is, what's happening around us. It's like I think it's just the reality of taking a really good look at where we are and how things are. there's no easy answers to this because nobody has the answers. Nobody knows what happens after we pass away and die. And the reality of it, though, is like my sister, she's been sick for quite a long time, quite a few decades now. And 3 years ago, the doctor had said she only had 6 months to live. And even before that, like 20 years ago, she had lupus. And my sister has gone through so much, and she's endured so much pain that this time the doctors have said her heart is so weak. She's taking blood thinners in the morning and the evening, and that her heart could stop at night. So those things, I mean, this is my environment. This is my family. I have a brother-in-law who's worked his whole life in auto mechanics, like body work, painting cars, restoring cars, that he developed cancer. And about 8 months ago, he was given a year to live. So again, too, we're waiting. He's really in bad shape too. So, again, this is part of my life and my family. I have a cousin who was having seizures, 14 years younger than me, and he just wouldn't wear a medical alert bracelet, won't take care of his diabetes, had a rented car, was driving it, totaled it. At the hospital, he took a seizure. I mean, they've been examining him for about a year. And so finally, when he had this automobile accident, they checked, and he has a tumor on his left side of his brain. And his sisters and brother, like, they check up on him every day because he lives alone. And he's got a bracelet on now, so if he has a seizure, it'll notify the ambulance to come right away. Now, the reality of it is, if he these seizures keep on happening regularly, increasing before September, because he's due for an operation in September, that they'll speed up the schedule for the surgery. So again, the doctor has told him he only has 6 months to live. So for me, at my age and however I live, I try my best to eat the best foods I can, take care of my body temperature, make sure I'm hydrated, keep in contact with people so that I'm not isolated and I'm not alone. Those things, we struggle every day. So I took care of my mother as a caregiver for over 10 years. Learned a lot about diabetes, learned a lot about the systems that are going on, the misogyny, like against elder Indigenous women, and just the reality of like how much of who I am has based on how well I adapted in an environment of misogyny. And an environment of lateral violence. Sometimes I wish for females, I wish patriarchy wasn't so oppressive. I wish the Indian Act hadn't been created to eliminate Indigenous people. But again, too, we're just a small drop in the bucket of 8 billion people. And again, that's a little bit overwhelming when you think about it. Canada's only United States is 250 years old. That's nothing. I think Canada is 100 and something years old. That's a drop in the bucket. Really. But you look at all these countries in Europe and China and Russia, India, Africa, like how long they've been existing. I mean, not to say like Indigenous people haven't been here for 20, 30,000 years. Our DNA and scientific evidence shows there's validation for that, despite academics and white supremacists wanting to say different. Now, get this. This is how naive I am as an Indigenous woman, because you have all these Republicans. They have these conferences and all these mega men. Okay, now I this isn't coming from me as an Indigenous woman. This is coming from white women who watch these things, because a lot of the laws that white men are trying to do towards white women is trying to have control over their body and their rights as women to live. They said, Marina, do you know that like there is a website where men go to hook up? I forget what the name of it is, but on the website, now not that I'm going to go look for it, but on this website, the website shows places where you'll see men that are going to hook up. Okay, so when they have these huge Republican caucuses or conferences, that website goes down, because there's so many men trying to hook up with other men, and these are men who are like, what the heck? How do they manipulate their wives to how do they manipulate their wives about their bisexual tendency, their bisexual behavior? Like I said, where's the man's G-spot? Biologically, men, like, hello, men are not like women. So until men actually own it and understand their own sexuality, their own sexual needs, they're going to be just secretly hooking up with other men behind the backs of their partners or other women. Like I said, I am so naive. And I'm going, no wonder why, you have all these people who have been fighting, like trying to hide the Epstein files, or, saying that they, like they're so charismatically handsome men that every woman would swoon to them because, why, they're billionaires. Like, it's so unrealistic that they have to be so sad about their own sexuality. I really admire bisexual men and homosexual men who have the courage to live the best of their lives, and are not pressuring women, or not telling us what we can or cannot do. And the fact that a heterosexual woman would want to have a child with a homosexual man, there is nothing the matter with that. Matriarchy has been around for thousands and thousands of years. Doesn't mean we're going to control or do things the way patriarchy. It's not the same thing. But if people could understand and just try to understand, the biology of women is so totally different than the biology of men. And for me, I sometimes I just can't get my head around it, because again, my father was in the military, but yet I can't get my head around it. That all these military men, like when they go to war, and I mean, I know they're saying, oh well, there's no homosexuality in the military, or like this whole fallacy. Like I said, it's an illusion or delusional. But the reality of it is, there comes a time in a person's life when that self-reflection really has to kick in, because something gives. Either your health gives out, something gives. It really challenges the foundation of what you lived, and it'll happen with every human being. It'll happen, and some people, like what's happening in the United States, they're running scared. Because there are so many people who are voicing their opinion of who they are and what they want for the future, that they're losing control over people who obeyed them. And for me, the whole thing about cowboys and Indians, especially with the Calgary Stampede in full-blown, like out there, I don't think the majority of people who go to the Stampede actually go to the rodeo. I don't think they're really concerned about the cowboys, because like I grew up in cowboy country. My father was a rodeo announcer, he was a bronc rider. All my uncles took part in rodeo. My grandfather and my father and all his siblings, they were in chuck wagons. So I kid you not, I've been around barrel racers. I've even uh, uh, ridden a wild horse bareback. Like, what the heck? Sometimes I think about these things and I'm going, a lot of the people who come to the Stampede can't even comprehend that kind of lifestyle. And again, too, that's based on, people coming into the new world and trying to capture and take land. So right now, I think the majority of people, especially when it comes to big oil that sponsors the Calgary Stampede, it's here. Everybody runs, has a car, everything, all that. All the leaders who've been bought out by oil companies. The oil companies really don't give a damn about First Nations. They just throw, here's $1 million, fight over it. They just say, throw money at them. That's a white man's attitude, or oil companies or billionaires' attitude towards First Nations. Throw money at us, we'll take it. And believe you me, even in my community, there are people who got into council, made lots of money, not being millionaires, but close to being a millionaire. Not from hard work, like the young man who is from my community, is a millionaire who wasn't into politics, nothing. He made his money in the United States. But there are politicians in First Nations who have their hands out. As soon as the oil company comes, they'll just grab that money as soon as it's thrown to them. They'll pocket it and they'll give it to everybody who will keep their secret. Everybody who's along that line of the handout, they'll give it to them. It's like theft. They're stealing that money out of my very mouth and giving it to somebody else. That's me. I've grown up here my whole life. Ask me what kind of perks I've gotten from chief and council. Nothing. They tried when I was director of education, and I said no. And that's because I had lived in the States and moved home. And after I experienced that, I said, no, I'll take any job other than an office job. I'll do anything. I was digging ditches. I was digging for shrapnel and munitions, and I'm educated. I've worked off reserve, but I chose to work in my community. Talk with people in my community, be friends with people in my community, learn from them, embrace them and help even bury them. So, whatever people want to talk about what it's like, I can tell you. I can tell you what it's like to live in First Nations. I can't tell you what it's like to live in Inuit communities, or I can't tell you what it's like to live in Métis community, because I've never lived there. But I can tell you that if I find someone who, and most people, excuse me, when people have a status card and they know they've never lived in an Indigenous community, at least some of them have come up to the plate and have said, I'm going to pay back this money. Now, do people who have those status cards have the gumption to do that? Do they have the wherewithal to do that? That's my challenge to people who hold those status cards. And that money could be going to my cousin, who's lived her whole life. Her children live in their community, and their house is falling apart. So, well, you can't live on charity. No, but, make sure you give them money to people who actually deserve it and need it. Because when she passes away, what's her legacy? Where are her children going to gather? Again, it's like even child and family. When I say women who have 5 kids, I'm only saying this because I met this young woman. I worked with her. She was pregnant. Her children were apprehended, and then she had her baby, and she couldn't even take her baby home. They just took her without her even seeing her baby. 6 babies she had. Broken-hearted. She only lasted a month and she died. Now, where are her children? All in foster care. We have no sovereignty over our children. And when it comes to Indigenous women, again, like what if we don't have partners, or if our men refuse to look after our children, then that's lateral violence. And that's why it totally kept blowing my mind why people would continually support Nathan Chasing Horse, knowing he had 10 children, knowing he had $350,000 in child support arrears, and still worship the ground he walked on. And again, that's pretendian. Like I said, they're his hands out. Give me money. And he took it. He took it and took it and took it. And who was hurting? Girls and children. Like it's the tip of the iceberg when you look really deep into it. That's why when it comes to suicide, you got to really look into it, the behavior. What drove that 12-year-old to kill herself? So you say, okay, what drove these children to be apprehended? Like, you can't just say, oh, it was their time. No, that's illusional or delusional thinking, which does not help the children or the women in need. So I don't know. I don't have the answer. All I know is that I miss a lot of my female friends who have died. I had a friend who I knew for 30 years, and you can laugh all you want. I mean, I was promiscuous. And see, if I were in the United States and there were mega Trump, all this conservative Republican, like even in Canada with the separatists, my saying this on the podcast, they would just crucify me on that wooden cross. And I'd say, I'm going to get off that cross because I need that wood for my sweat. Because really, promiscuity is acceptable, with white supremacists? It's acceptable in all cultures in the world for men to go around and sow their wild oats. But when a woman does it, oh my goodness, let's stone her to death. Let's get her married right away. She can't control her sexual urges. I'm trying to say that's part of the healing process. Men do it, women do it. It's part of the healing process that Creator has given us. It's nothing to be ashamed of, to be wanting to have sex. Nothing ashamed of it. And I really cherish my friend. I mean, I was looking for a big sister, a mother. I was looking for someone who would keep my secrets. I would go and pick up somebody, and she'd come and pick me up, and she'd come with me. She'd know who I was going home with. She kept my secrets, and I didn't even know I was keeping her secrets, because she just said, "Marina, I thought you knew I was having an affair with your brother." I said, "No, I didn't know." Again, because I was living in some sort of illusion or delusion about other things other than my sexuality. So, which was probably trauma-based, but that's neither here nor there. And again, that's part of it too, though. I want you to understand trauma from childhood, however extreme it is, you need really, it's not a magic wand, and you have to really shop around. You're worth it. Just don't go to some person who does sweats or just do what you can. Go if you feel comfortable and you're healthy enough to have boundaries. Go to a therapist. Shop around. If you find a therapist who's giving you advice, or they're just writing, go someplace else. But the reality of it is, my friend, I could pick up the phone and I say, "Let's go." She'll say, "I have $20. Let's go to a casino." And we'd go. I wouldn't bother her for money. She wouldn't bother me for money. At the end of the hour or two, we'd meet up and go home. But that was our friendship. It was just mutual. And I really appreciated her. And again, it comes from living a life with a lot of trauma and acceptance of things you cannot change. She was a beautiful soul, and I've met so many women too, who, with all the hurt that men have given them. My friend had her husband, she had 5 kids from her husband, and he used to beat her so bad, kick her with his boots, black eyes. She'd be walking into the city with her children. You know, she'd tell me like how her husband took a gun and played Russian roulette with her sons, holding the gun to their heads. Things that she endured, and no child support, didn't pay child support. All these things she said, I have to look after my children. When I leave, whatever happens to my children, I can't make trouble for like, because she's not from this community. Her husband married her into the community. But the shame and guilt that they tried to put on her, or shame and guilt they tried to put on me, just for being friends. She was like 13 years older than myself. And, you know, I like I said, there are people in our lives who have helped us to become who we are. And just the gratitude that I have for her just being there. Even when I was in the States, I'd come home. All I had to do was call her and say, let's go out, and she'd be there. You know, just at the drop of the hat, didn't have to feel like I was begging to be her friend. And you know, I mean, it might seem harsh, but, you know, as an elder, this young man, out of the blue, you know, just decided to take, you know, fly into Calgary, fly with me down to Las Vegas, Uber me around, you know, be my companion for like a day and a half. Like, who would do that? Nobody I know. Like I said, you know, even though he said he was going to come for the stampede and didn't, a lot of other people said they were going to come and didn't show up. So it's no biggie. But the fact is of his actions, like that he came. And for me, it really made me open my eyes to another part of the world. Because most of the white men that I've known have lived in Calgary. Calgary being the most American city in Canada. And growing up with a whole bunch of racist kids. And thinking that all white people were this way. And then to find out, like, here's this young man, never grew up in North America, had his own healing journey to go through. Just meeting him and trying to understand the passion he had, the curiosity for things that were happening to Indigenous people. And the fact that he went out of his way. I don't want to sound pitiful, but can you appreciate that? I can. That's why, you know, when I talk about making allies and cohorts, and having the capacity to sit in being uncomfortable. I mean, this is a person who has never lived in the Americas, who's never been around Indigenous people. I just, like, I knew people were good people. I'm not saying like all white people I've met were bad. I'm just saying the things we pick up in our lifetime of meeting different people. I'm just grateful for all the people I've met before I met this young man. Because the energy he was holding, I think it's probably surprised him more that I could sense it, and that he had the courage to get to know who I was, and to not be afraid of anything that I would say that would feel uncomfortable for him. Yeah, it's life is amazing. So embrace all the stuff that you've had in your life, all the people that you think didn't give you a lesson or somehow something's going to click when you hear my podcast and say, oh yeah. And you think about, well, why do you keep on thinking about that person? Even if that person is like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, like memory is so powerful and has such an impact to us every day of our lives. That's why I say the older we get, the more we need to embrace with protective, reflective, healing energy, and the more we need to release protective, reflective, healing energy, because we've led and lived so many lifetimes with so many memories, and how we honor those memories and how we share them with people that we just meet, or even looking at how dangerous people are. Dangerous, like the reality of looking at someone and knowing they've killed somebody. That's what I walked into. And it wasn't something like premeditated or anything like that. This was something from a white male perspective, who had been given permission to do what they did. And the consequences of them living with that energy, or the fact that they took away that energy from another human being, and that they have to live with it as a memory throughout their whole life. My memory and how I embrace and release is it, like, I just hope people understand it. And the fact that so many people have learned how to balance these energies after experiencing and living such horrific situations where they've had to do horrific things to protect themselves and others. So it's out there, it's always out there in everyday living. And so I think part of what I try to do in my podcast is to embrace the stories, the narratives of Indigenous women, as well as understanding how to let it go, because the majority of times there aren't those people these visitors, like the visitor that I had, who entered into my life and took something of me with him. Those things I'm really grateful for. And at the same time, I'm sharing it with you, my audience. It's a big, huge world. And all these people, because the world is so small now, and people are flying in and out of our lives, and to know that some of these people are very dangerous. And how do we protect ourselves? How do we know there's danger? And how do we protect those we love, especially within our community? That's how I was able to spot Nathan chasing horse. And people for 20 years didn't want to address the gifts I've been given by Creator. And that's okay. It's fine. I'm here to tell my story. I'm here to share it, to let you know that whatever we do in trying to understand how to balance ourselves, how to embrace and release this energy, this great mystery, the great mystery called love. So with that, tomorrow I've got to get up, get my tooth fixed, go shopping for some food stuff. And then Saturday I'm off to the Stampede in the morning. Yay. And right now I've been indoors all day because of fire. The smoke in the Rockies into Calgary and the heat. Like there's a heat dome around Manitoba. There's flooding in the Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation, like nothing before. There's so much happening, and yet, this heat. I know it's coming. I think in the United States, central United States, all the way to the eastern seaboard, and people have been saying that El Nino in the 1800s killed millions of people, again, we're just on this speck of dust floating around in this huge place, swirling around in a spiral around this sun as it's jetting its way. And whatever happens, we're subject to it. It's not anything new. It's like what did they say? Mother Earth looks after herself. She will heal herself. But we're here, and as microcosms on this, like ants. And so, how are we going to be collective and holistic to evolve into this mechanism? Because no matter how many people, white supremacists, patriots, Republicans, call them what you may, who want to have control and manipulation over women and children, that's not going to save the planet. There is something greater that's happening in evolution. And we can see it, we can sense it, and I'm embracing it and releasing it. If anything, with my podcast, it's a catalyst to what's ever going to happen when I'm 6 feet underground, or even 100 years from now. And anyway, I enjoy my podcast. And again, to Darcy and Marie, thank you for listening. And for any newcomers that I might see in Calgary, or some people just come up to me, and I'm grateful for that too. So anyway, if you see me, say hello, and I'll say hello to you on my podcast as well. Adios, amigos, until, or what do they call it, Donata, or au revoir, à demain, c'est bien. I wish I knew other. Doshta ake wachi.